getting to a point where no rhythm surprises you, right? But I remember when I first started improvising, the thing that derailed my focus more than anything else was just inaccurate rhythm. That would pull me out of the flow. And so how I ended up overcoming that first, we need to define mastery in music, because only then will we be able to understand why 99% of musicians never achieve mastery, okay? So mastery in music is very simply the ability to express any musical idea in real time, okay? So compare that to English mastery, right? You're a master of English if you can express any idea that pops into your head in real time. You can express that through the language of English, right? It's exactly the same thing in music, right? So most of you watching this, probably all of you watching this, are masters of English, right? It's very effortless for you to express yourself in English, right? So we need to get to the same point in music. We need to get to the point where we can express our musical ideas as effortlessly as we can express our English ideas. Okay, so why then do 99% of musicians fail to achieve this level of mastery? Well, this is actually going to force us to look at the differences between music and English. Now, there is one staggering difference, and it's the rhythmic aspect. So, in spoken language, like English, there is a rhythmic aspect. I'm speaking rhythmically, right? But the rhythmic aspect does not make or break what I'm saying, right? Like I can slow down my pace or I can speed it up. And the point comes across cleanly and articulately, regardless of the speed or the relative speed that I'm speaking, right? Music, the rhythmic aspect is much more technical, okay? In music, you need to align everything that you play to a rhythmic grid, and that grid is mapped out over real time, right? Think about that. That's where it gets tricky, right? Because if you want to express musical ideas, you actually need to develop all of those ideas with respect to rhythm. So you don't have to do that in English. You really never even think about rhythm when you're learning the English language. I don't know about other languages, but in most of the Western languages, you don't really think about assigning your words and your phrases to a rhythmic grid, right? But in music, there's no avoiding this. The rhythm makes or breaks everything that you play, right? And there's a grid that must be acknowledged in music. So the reason why people fail to get to a point where they can express any musical idea in real time is because they don't have that connection to the grid, and they're not able to develop ideas in real time according to a rhythmic grid. Now, why can't they develop ideas in real time according to a rhythmic grid? Well, it's because when they're just practicing their scales or practicing their modes or their arpeggios, most of the time you're practicing those as like a consistent, 16th note subdivision or a consistent triplet subdivision. You're not actually incorporating any syncopation when you're practicing your harmonic stuff, right? When you're practicing your scales, your arpeggios. Most of the time, people are running scales like dooba 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 da, right? Most of the time, that's what people are doing, right? Because that's easy, you don't have to think about it. It's like lifting weights, super easy, right? It doesn't require any creativity, but you can kind of feel accomplished that you ran your scales for the day, right? But this is exactly why, when it comes to actually fluently speaking the language of music, getting to a point where you can masterfully communicate your musical ideas, you completely fall short because you haven't actually accounted for what happens in real-time musical creation, which is syncopation, rhythmic variation, right? Now, this is crucial to mastering the language of music, but the way that people practice is they don't actually take the time to develop their ideas in terms of rudiments, right? The idea with the rudiment is that you can compose a specific rhythm, right? And then once you've composed that specific rhythm, you can use that specific rhythm in a bunch of different harmonic contexts, right? So for example, maybe your specific rhythm is something that shifts from 16th notes to 16th note triplets, right? Maybe that's your specific rhythm. So for example, like, right? 1E and a triplet, 1E and a triplet, one. That's a rudiment, right? That's a specific rhythm. I can play any number of harmonic ideas, single note melodic harmonic ideas in that specific rudiment, right? So what I would do is I would take that rudiment, 1E and a triplet, 1E and I would run that through a form, right? So I would experience that rudiment on multiple different chord changes. I would play the same rudiment on multiple different chord changes, right? So you think about the practice form, right? Look at the practice form right here, right? Maybe you see the D flat as 2 beats of 16th notes, and you see the C as 2 beats of 16th note triplets, and you see the F minor as 2 beats of 16th notes followed by 2 more beats of 16th note triplets. So your rhythm ends up being, right? 1E and a 2E and a triplet, 1E and a 2E and a triplet. That is a rudiment, and that rudiment will serve you infinitely. The trick is to become familiar with the rudiment in different harmonic contexts, right? This is what opens up the floodgates of musical mastery here, right? Because what happens is when you're improvising in real time, you will be inspired to play any number of different rhythms, right? That's the whole point of real-time improvisation, right? The inspiration of the moment is triggering all of these ideas, right? But all of these ideas need to be aligned to a grid. So if you didn't take the time to align your licks or your vocabulary, or better yet, your pathways to the grid, well, when you're in the moment of improvisation, you'll keep getting off of the grid and your ideas will fall flat, right? Because you'll know as the performer that you missed the mark on what you intended to do because what you played wasn't locked into the grid, right? And then, of course, the whole thing topples, right? Because you get out of the focus, you feel like a fraud, you feel like you made a mistake, right? The whole flow state collapses, right? Because basically, you played something that you did not mean to play, right? So musical mastery is really the ability to hear every single thing that you ever play on the grid, right? So even if you make a mistake, you still hear the mistake on the grid. Now this is getting deeper, but the power of this is that you always have that ability to respond, right? So if you make a mistake, you still hear the mistake on the grid, and you can logically respond to that rhythm. Even if it was a mistake, it doesn't matter. It's still a rhythm hitting across the grid. But because you have musical mastery, you can hear how that mistake fell across the grid. And then you can legitimize that mistake with the very next thing you play by just playing a rhythm that logically connects to the call that was a mistake, right? This is musical mastery. So key takeaways here. What's the difference between musical mastery and English mastery? Musical mastery demands rhythmic precision. It demands it. There is no escaping it. English mastery does not. It's completely different that way, right? So, how do we get to a point where everything we play in music is rhythmically aligned? Well, we work on rudiments. We compose rudiments, and we'll use the same rudiments over and over and over again through different chord change sequences, right? And then what we'll start to do as, melodic instrumentalists, right? I'm speaking to you guys, I'm speaking to guitarists, trumpet players, piano players, bass players, saxophone players, trombone players, right? What you're gonna start to do is you're gonna take these rudiments and you're gonna play melodic variations on the same rudiment, right? So if my rudiment is 1 E and a 2 E and a triplet, 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 how many different note sequences can I play across that same rudiment? Well, there is a finite amount, but there's a lot, right? There's a lot. More than, even though it's finite, you still probably won't actually ever play them all. But the point is, you want to start to think about the same rudiment with as many melodic possibilities as imaginable, right? Now you're starting to develop some useful language, and you're also starting to develop a useful mentality here, right? The mentality of the same rhythm, but unlimited melodic variation on the same rhythm. Now, obviously, when you go to perform music, you're not going to keep playing the same rhythm over and over again. What you're going to start to do is you're going to begin to deconstruct rhythmic rudiments, right? It's this classic idea that, once you establish a rudiment, well, you can, of course, deconstruct that rudiment. Use the same elements, like, for example, I'm shifting from 16th notes to triplets. I can do that, 6 ways from Sunday, right? Like, instead of going 1 E and 1 E and triplet, 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 I could go 1 E and triplet, triplet, 1 E triplet, 1 E and triplet and right? See what I'm saying? Like, it's still the same basic rudimentary principle. Like, the anchor point is just making the shift from 16th notes to triplets, right? But look how many different ways I can do that, right? Once I can make that shift, well, then guess what? I can make that shift in all these different locations, right? So you're kind of starting to see, what's the mentality of composing rudiments? Well, it's usually just getting really familiar with a specific rhythmic gesture. In this case, the classic example is switching from, duple 16th notes to triple 16th note triplets. That's very popular. I get a lot of comments from people like, oh, I want to get better at shifting from 16th notes to triplets. Yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely a good one. But, that's just one of literally infinite rhythmic rudiments. And just to give some perspective there, let's talk about a few rhythmic rudiments which would be all on the same subdivision, right? So if I just stay on 16th notes, right? 1 E and 2 E and this is where you get into groupings. This is super important. We're talking about mastery here, okay? Like, why do 99% of musicians fail to achieve mastery? Well, it's because they never thought about everything that I'm saying right now. So think about it this way, right? The other idea that always comes up, groupings, right? Grouping the same subdivision in different ways, right? This is classic, right? So 16th notes, right? 1 E and 2 E and, right? Now grouping those 16th notes in groups of 3 and then maybe a 2 to get back to a downbeat, right? So check it out, right? 1 E and 2 E and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, bang! That's the 3, 3, 2, right? So what did I do? Is I just played 2 beats of 16th notes, 8 total subdivisions, but I grouped the first 6 subdivisions in 3s, 2 groups of 3, and then I added a 2 to get back to the downbeat. That's a rudiment also. It's also, the 3, 3, 2 tresillo, right? Rudiments, you know what I mean? Like, goes way, 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 way deep, right? But the grouping thing is huge because this is so classic. Like, in real-time improvisation, how many times have you been in that moment where you confuse your groupings for an entirely different subdivision, right? Like, you're grouping 16th notes in 3s, but because you haven't actually mapped out your 16th notes grouped in 3s, you might have confused them for triplets, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is so classic, right? These are the things you got to think about if you want to achieve musical mastery, and you can see that it has everything to do with just focusing on rhythms and having that rhythmic preparation, right? Getting to a point where no rhythm surprises you, right? But I remember when I first started improvising, the thing that derailed my focus more than anything else was just inaccurate rhythm, right? Like that would pull me out of the flow. And so how I ended up overcoming that was just building a practice around developing rudiments and then cultivating the skill of variations on rudiments or deconstructing rudiments, right? That's essentially what prevents you from ever playing licks, right? You might play the same rudiment, but because of how many different melodic possibilities are over any given rudiment, no one would ever think you're playing a lick, right? Because the different melodic ways you can express a rudiment actually change what the rudiment sounds like, right? Like different melodic contour will make a given rudiment sound completely different, right? For example, you could play triplets, but you could group them in threes or you could group them in twos, right? So hear that, right? Triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 16th note triplets grouped in threes, or 16th note triplets grouped in twos, right? When you're grouping them in two, that's because of what you're playing melodically is grouping it in two, right? Now I know this is getting deep, right? But I'm speaking to the people who need to hear this, right? So I hope this was helpful. I mean, I hope this just triggered a lot of creative practice opportunity, essentially, because it all just comes down to what are you doing in the practice room? How are you spending your practice time? Because how you spend your practice time is going to determine whether or not you just stay playing the same 3 half-baked licks for muscle memory on every solo, or if you actually achieve improvisational freedom. And what I'm telling you is how you're going to achieve improvisational freedom is by focusing on the rhythmic aspect. Composing rudiments, playing melodic variations on the same rudiments, and then deconstruct those rudiments to create even further variation. But it's just the classic idea that once you establish something specific, well, then you're free to deconstruct that thing, right? Very, very powerful tool, right? It's like when I go back to talking about melodic pathways, I have a specific pathway, right? Once that pathway is specified, well, now I can start to think about the variations on it, but I can't think about the variations until I commit to something. That's the same thing with the rudiments, right? Commit to the same rudiment, ingrain that, right? Hear it, audiate it, say it, you know what I mean? Think about it. Like when I'm walking down the beach, I'm thinking about rudiments, like 1E and a triplet, like that's what you want to do, right? And then when I go back to my instrument, I'm gonna play those same rudiments through different chord change sequences and then start to change the melodic contour of those rudiments, and boom, right? Like that's a lot of variation right there. And it's preparing me to comfortably improvise. All right, like I said, get to practice, work on those rudiments. You might as well limit yourself to triads because that will free your mind to focus more on the rhythmic rudiment. And once you get creative with the rudiments, then it full circles into this idea of like, well, the triads actually carry you basically the full distance, because if you're creative with rhythm, you barely need more notes than triads, right? So there you guys have it. Talk to you soon.